It's Meika's Safehouse with Ian Sprague on the Pet Channel on TVU. How you doing, Ian?
We're doing great today. How about yourself, James?
Fantastic, fantastic. It's just everything is so good and moving along so wonderfully. It's
Right on.
the sun's shining behind the clouds, but it is shining.
I was going to say, move it over towards me a little bit more. Hey, it's a little dreary, but that's okay.
We've got an interesting show. It's an update show, so let's get rolling.
Yeah, for sure. So I thought we'd start off with talking a little bit about molting. We have a lot of that going on around here. I brought a molted feather just for a prop. This is off one of the macaws, right? Obviously, but it's interesting because if you look at the feather, you'll see that the quill part, and then just like everybody's seen that kind of thing. But this at one time was full of blood. This was actually a blood vessel. And the feathered part, the veins of this, were all wrapped up in a keratin sheath. So it just looked like a needle is what it looked like at one point. So it all looked like that, right? And so when it still had a blood supply in it. Now as the feather matures, the blood recedes in the vessel, and then the feather blooms, and just like a plant. And so the keratin sheath will fall off, and you end up with something like that. Now, that's a normal process for birds. They have to because these things are flying and getting banged against things and stuff happens. They get damaged. They need to be replaced, annually or semi-annually. A lot of the birds we do it twice a year. And it always corresponds in time with like a breeding season. So when you have pet birds at home, you're going to have anybody, especially with the parrots, they're going to have a time of year where their birds are kind of miserable. They don't want to have much to do with you, or they want to have a lot to do with you. Okay? The other side of the coin, where you're everything to them. Really lovey-dovey, really bitey, though, at the same time. And at the end of that season, they drop their feathers, they molt normally, and then they have new plumage come in, right? So a lot of times you'll see birds, wild birds in particular, will have a completely different plumage. You won't even recognize the birds from breeding season to their maintenance season, right? So it's a normal process. So what happens is that takes a lot of energy off the animal, right? So the bird is kind of depleted after this. Never mind the breeding part of it, but just the regeneration of all their feathers. So there's a bunch of stuff we can do as pet owners to make that a little bit easier for the birds. First thing is making sure that we help them as much as we can with their diet. So start giving them a lot more darker, like if you're feeding vegetables, really dark green vegetables, or really dark orange vegetables, carrots, sweet potatoes, broccoli, kale, that kind of stuff. Really dark colors. And that's going to help them with absorption of minerals and all that other kind of neat stuff. And it's also good for their skin. Now, if we have birds that are not interested in eating any of that, which happens quite a bit, they just want to eat their seeds and all that stuff is just a lot of effort and the bird's not going along with it. There's supplements we can use. For birds that have dry skin or stuff like that, I use this stuff. And it's just hemp seed oil. There's dogs on the picture. You can use it for any animal. It works for humans too. If you have dry skin chronically, you'd have to drink it, but it'll help. And it does help with oil production and just natural stuff with your skin, right? So it's good for their skin, which in turn ends up being good for their coat or their feathers. Another thing that we have here is another product called Feather Guard. So if your bird goes into a really serious molt, and this happens probably every second year, where they really drop a lot of feathers fast. And so you'll actually see bald spots on them. You can use this stuff, and this again is just like a conditioner for the skin. It's not a miracle or anything like that. It's just like putting aloe vera on your skin if you've got a rash or an irritation. It's just to soothe things along. It doesn't really do anything other than make it easier, feel better, during the process. Another one we got, this comes in a big tub, Feather Fast. And this is extra vitamins, basically, that they will need in the production of feathers, right? Because, like I said, it's a real drain on their nutritional values, right? So that's a product that you would use if you can't get them to eat the foods they need naturally, right? Or just as a supplement during molting. Because a lot of time with molting, we associate it with breeding. So a lot of times we're talking about birds that have just gone through laying a bunch of eggs and, and sitting on them and that's a real drain on mom and dad, right? So I always this is just liquid calcium, and we just put that in their water. And I give this to them at the beginning of breeding season and after breeding season because they've just gone through all this. The reason why I give it to them at the beginning isn't so much for egg shell production, but it is more for their muscles. If a bird or an animal, any animal, is low on calcium, their muscles can't function properly, right? So for a bird that's laying eggs, it needs, not only does it need to develop a decent shell for the egg, but it also needs to be able to have the muscles to contract and get the eggs out. And now the same thing kind of goes with their feathers. They need to have all their minerals topped right up for feather production. And so twice a year, I use a product like this. It's just calcium plus vitamin D. Through vegetables, you can do a lot of that. This is to top everything up in case there's something there that you can't, they're not eating or you can't provide. That's what all those products I just showed you are there to help things along. And if you have a bird that's got feather destructive behavior, which is very different than molting, okay? Molting is a natural process that happens, a couple times a year, and it only lasts, 2 or 3 weeks. Feather destructive behavior is a behavioral issue caused by that's a whole other show we can do. But the results are the same. They're going to try to regenerate those feathers. They're going to need all the help they can get. But with feather destructive behavior, they're going to need it all the time, not just a couple times a year.
So you're just adding that. You're just adding that to their seed then.
Exactly. This stuff I sprinkle on top of the seed. This is a powder. Mm-hmm. This is a lot of hemp oil for birds, but normally for a pound or 2 kg of or no, the other way around. Anyways, I'm not good with my conversions, but for a kg of food, I put in half a teaspoon, and I just mix it up.
Okay.
And in it goes. They'll eat it, right? If you give it too much, then it's a mess, and it's just a little bit goes a long way.
Now with going with organic and the vegetables, do you have to dice them to the size of seed? Like, what do you got to do with those?
That's another part that goes into chop. Every bird has its own preferences. So some birds we just take like when I have Tico and Eleanor, those are the big macaws that you've met. Yeah. I just give them a head of broccoli. There you go. You're good. Right? Right. And for some of the other birds, I have to chop it up. Some of them I have to hang it up. Some of them like it in a dish. Like they all have their own thing. Yeah, and they all have their own personality, right? And so I try to accommodate as much as I can for all of them. And some of the, like when we're in the outdoor aviaries, like we were last week, I just get a chunk of vegetable and I just hang it up. Like, here's a carrot, boom. You guys want it, right? Yeah. No,
that's good. Well, yeah, I was, because they have the foraging toys that we've seen in past episodes. That's, like I couldn't see them wanting it two chunks. The big ones, maybe the little guys for sure. Yeah. They want to sit up.
But some of them, like I say, they're parrot. Like when we're talking about parrots, sometimes we're not talking. We could be talking about finches too. But the parrots, like I say, they hold it with their food. They have that wrist. They can eat with their hands. They'll like bigger chunks. So with the finches and stuff that you'll see fluttering behind me sometimes, those guys, it's chopped up fairly finely. but the same rules apply. They eat it. They like it. You know, they need the variety.
So we have an update from our lovebird babies that we saw a few weeks ago.
I'm just going to make a little spot here. I don't know if the mic has been picking them up screaming at me, but they are almost they're in the beginning stages of fledging. So hopefully nobody jumps out at me here. So here, gotta make sure I hold them up high enough.
Oh my!
I don't know if you remember that this is they were just little tiny guys. This one you see a little purple on the back. That is just for identification. That's just a little bit of food coloring we put on there because we wanted to make sure we knew who was who. But yeah, so they're grown up now. They're still eating. We're still giving them hand feeding a couple times a day. Whoops, they're jumping off. Here's another one. This one is one of the younger guys. I can get them to stay on my hand. There we go. There we are. Right. And hopefully, yeah. So this is one of the younger guys. Sorry. So yeah, you can see that he's starting to get colored up. He's got his wings now.
Yeah.
They're all figuring it out.
Yeah.
And then this one. This was the runt. So he was the really, really tiny guy, I think, if you remember. But he is almost, his tail's just coming in. You can see his tail's just starting to feather up. But yeah, no, it won't be much longer now, and you have so you're starting to fledge. They're making small hops, and yeah, they won't be long now.
That's good.
And they'll be looking for homes.
And even these ones are so bright. Like they know there's something going on in the screen there. It's so interesting.
Yeah, they can see you.
Yeah,
they can see you.
They're good, and they, you know, they're very comfortable. I like how that one jumped out and just jumped on you. They're you're part of the flock over there.
Well, I think yeah. That's it. They can't do long fights, but they're starting to do little ones, right? So it's good. It's a good progress. I'm going to say 2 more weeks. They'll be 100% eating on their own, and they'll be looking for homes.
Let's talk about that again.
Oh, you didn't hear me?
No, about homes. You know what people, you know what they need to do, and
so if people are interested in these lovebirds, all they need to do is come down to the store. There's a piece of paper that we'll have you fill out. And it's just like a little questionnaire. So we just want to make sure that you're prepared to own a parrot, and you're prepared you understand exactly what goes into it, because it's a little bit more of a commitment than a lot of us think offhand, because they are so intelligent and they need that interaction. So I know during COVID, the numbers were up for applications. A lot of people, all of a sudden, they find themselves at home. They're looking for something to do and all that kind of stuff. The problem being, these guys live longer than COVID does. So when everything goes back to normal, are you still interested in caring for this animal? So that's kind of the things that we want to make sure people understand as we go forward.
That's right.
After that, then it's once the application's filled out and everybody's comfortable with the situation, then you're an owner of a lovebird.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And anything exciting coming up this week in the parrot? Is parrot business starting to open up? The conventions? Any word?
No, nothing coming yet.
Okay.
There's still fairly quiet.
Okay.
I think it's encouraging to see that the airlines are back flying. So I think that's gonna help, because people are gonna say, well, hey, if Air Canada can run a flight to Toronto, why can't I have a convention for half a day? You know,
exactly.
where we can do some sort of social distancing. So I think that's all encouraging. I think we're looking at stuff going to happen. I've heard rumors of the Edmonton Pet Parrot Association doing their parrot walk, probably July, August. So at the end of this month, the beginning of next, somewhere. I haven't got a firm date yet, but I will definitely keep us updated on that.
Good. That's good news.
Yeah.
That's excellent.
Yeah, everything's looking up.
That's awesome. Meika's Safe House on the Pet Channel with Ian Sprague, only on TVU.
Have a great Canada Day.
Yes.